Well, hello. Today is April 21st and 2026, and we're going to be continuing working on thoughts on the verse of the day. Just kind of thoughts as I tend to pull over at my lunch break and look at that verse, and then I'm going to give you guys kind of my raw what struck me as I read these verses. So here we go. It comes from Paul's letter to the Romans. I have it in the ESV here on the app, and it says, "For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith." And so there's several things, I think. First of all, anytime I see something like therefore or for in it, I'm going to say, well, what's it there for? Why does it say that? And so it's important to know that what Paul's talking about is the gospel. Verse 16, just previous to this, says, "I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew and then to the Greek." And then it continues, "for in it." And so the in it is the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. So let's slow it down a little bit and kind of look at this. First of all, there's this concept that the righteousness of God is not something to be attained or acquired, but something that is revealed. I think that's a big deal. You don't just work your way to heaven. That's not something that works. And in order to achieve or understand the righteousness of God, it has to be revealed. It is something God does, something God shows. So how then is it revealed? Well, it's got this statement that is, it could be an easier verse, but from faith for faith. It feels a little cryptic, but here's what I'm taking away from that as I'm looking at it at the beginning is this idea that a relationship with God begins with faith. It continues in faith. It is sustained by faith. Basically, our entire Christian life from start to finish is grounded in faith. Not just the doorway, but the path itself is faith. Of course, Paul's also quoting the Old Testament. I believe it's Habakkuk, where he wrote that the righteous shall live by faith. Even in the Old Testament, always from the beginning until now, some things have changed. People often say that what back then is so different than now, but it really isn't, because people have always lived with the same principle that life with God has always been based on faith and not performance. So let's look at this idea of faith just a minute. It's first of all, it's not just a belief in facts. It's a way more than just agreeing that God exists or that Jesus died and rose again. I mean, James says that even the demons believe and shudder, right? There's this idea that faith is much more than having it here. It's much more than intellectual agreement. Faith is, number two, I'd say faith is trust is a very big integral part of faith. It's trusting. Faith in God is trusting Him personally and knowing Him. You can't trust what you don't know. Faith is less like saying, yes, there's a bridge there, and more like, I know that bridge will cross me, and then crossing it. Faith is not a noun by itself. There's an action to it, a verb of faith, of walking and moving in faith, not just saying you have faith. Three, I'd say maybe faith is surrender to a certain extent. It's not just confidence, it's yielding yourself. Like we said yesterday, denying yourself. It's trusting God's way over yours. It's trusting God's timing over yours, which is so hard. It's trusting in God's promises, even though you might not believe you deserve them. That's why faith and obedience are so interconnected, that obedience doesn't earn anything, but real trust moves you closer to Jesus. Obedience doesn't earn you anything. You've already earned it by faith in Christ. Obedience helps you enjoy everything. Fourth, Faith is an ongoing thing. It's not just a one-time shot in the dark and that's all. From faith for faith means that you don't just start with faith. You live faith out daily. Every step, every decision, every struggle, every time you suffer, every time you grow. This is all dependent in your faith in God. Even those that don't believe in him have faith that they'll wake up every morning and have air to breathe, and the universe will be held together in his hand. There's a little bit of faith in all of us. But faith, and most importantly, faith is anchored in a person. Christian faith is not this vague, ethereal kind of whatever concept. It's rooted in a person, in Jesus Christ and his Spirit and God. It's Jesus' life, his death, his resurrection, his promises. I mean, a Christian faith says, I'm staking my life, my everything on him. On him. And so, bringing it back down to the verse, I think what Paul is saying here is that God makes people right through faith, that righteousness is received, not achieved, and that the life that follows is lived by abiding or continuing to trust in him. Trusting who God is, relying on what he's done, and living in response to it. So, where's your faith? That's the question really I'm struck with today. Is where's your faith? Is it in the world or is it in the one who made the world? Well, I'll tell you now that, man, if you want to see your faith grow, just start trusting in the Lord and walking in his ways. Ask the Lord to reveal to you his righteousness, because when you meet him, man, your life will be changed. All right, guys. Love you. Love God. Bye.